Welcome to the Tom Sense Show. We are on the air and rolling right now with the news that actually matters to working Americans. A quick reminder before we dive in, you can drop your questions to me at any point during this broadcast in the chat on YouTube or over on X. If it is a real question worth answering, I will take it right there in the middle of the news, and if it is just noise, we leave it behind. Today, Wall Street is having a bad day over inflation. The left is crying in court because foreign students might actually have to finish their degrees, and government contractors are terrified they might finally have to pay for wasting taxpayer time. Let us get into it. Wall Street took a hard hit on Thursday, suffering its worst single-day drop in 3 weeks. The Dow Jones fell over 700 points, down 1.3% to close at 52,759. The Standard & Poor's 500 dropped nearly 1%, and the Nasdaq tumbled by a full point. What caused the panic? Treasury yields spiked because Brent crude oil jumped 2.4%, while fears over persistent inflation and our massive national debt rattled trading desks across Manhattan. Retail giant Walmart led the downward slide as investors grew anxious over shrinking profit margins driven by high supply costs. Analysts are now warning that trade tensions mean the Federal Reserve will not be cutting interest rates anytime soon. For years, the establishment told everyone that endless government spending and out-of-control national debt would never come back to bite us. Now the bill is sitting on the kitchen table, and the financial class is suddenly shocked that borrowing trillions of dollars creates inflation. When energy costs rise, everything on a store shelf gets more expensive, and no amount of clever accounting on Wall Street changes the basic math. Everyday Americans have been dealing with these exact price pressures every time they visit the grocery store for the last 4 years. The market is just now waking up to the reality that working families have lived with every single day. A coalition made up of the United Auto Workers, the American Federation of Teachers, and the News Guild has filed a federal lawsuit in Massachusetts against the Department of Homeland Security. Their big complaint? A new rule finalized in July, set to take effect on the 15th of September, that puts a strict 4-year cap on foreign student visas. For decades, foreign students came in under a loose duration of status setup, which essentially let people linger on American campuses indefinitely as long as paperwork kept moving. Homeland Security wants a firm 4-year limit to protect national security and stop people from overstaying their visas. The labor unions are suing because they claim giving foreign students 4 years to complete a 4-year college degree creates an impossible administrative burden for campus research and newsrooms. Think about that for a second. An American student takes 4 years to finish a bachelor degree, works a job, pays tuition, and graduates on time. But the open borders crowd believes a foreign national should receive an open-ended pass to stay in our country forever without anyone checking the clock. The entire point of a student visa is to come here, study, get your degree, and go home to build your own country. If you cannot finish college in 4 years, the solution is not a permanent federal lawsuit against border security. The General Services Administration has sent a major proposal to Congress to fix the broken civilian procurement system. Right now, whenever a private contractor loses a bid for a government contract, they can file a protest with the Government Accountability Office, tie up the project in legal red tape for months, and cost taxpayers millions of dollars with zero risk to themselves. The agency wants Congress to pass a simple loser pays rule, matching the standard already used by the Department of Defense. They also want to raise the minimum financial threshold required to challenge civilian delivery orders from $10 million all the way up to $35 million. Naturally, contractor trade groups are screaming that this will shut down legal challenges and hurt small vendors. But in the real world outside the Beltway, when you lose a fair contest, you do not get to hold up the entire operation just because your feelings were hurt. The federal bureaucracy has turned procurement into a playground for Washington lawyers who make a living delaying government work. If a private company truly believes a contract was awarded unfairly, they should have enough skin in the game to back up their claim with their own money. Making habitual complainers pay the legal bill when they lose is the fastest way to get Washington back to work. Tragic news out of South Sudan, where the United Nations reports that at least 36 humanitarian aid workers and relief contractors have been killed since January. The data shows more than 450 violent security incidents targeting relief workers between January and July alone. That is more than double the number of violent attacks recorded during the exact same time frame last year. These brutal assaults by local armed factions have broken the supply chains that deliver food and essential medicine to millions of displaced people facing starvation. International officials are demanding that the transitional government step in and provide security, while relief agencies are warning that they may have to shut down all operations in the region entirely if the bloodshed does not stop. Men and women who travel into war zones to hand out food and care for the wounded are being targeted and murdered by local warlords. No country can expect foreign aid to keep flowing when the people delivering the help are being shot in the streets. The transitional authorities in South Sudan bear full responsibility for failing to maintain order and protect human life, and relief operations cannot survive in an environment where lawlessness goes completely unchecked. The Colorado Court of Appeals has delivered a major win for law enforcement in the case of People versus Anderson. Back in 1984, a young woman was murdered, and the case went cold for decades. In 2020, investigators pulled a discarded soda container out of a shared dumpster, ran the genetic material, matched it to David Dwayne Anderson, and convicted him of murder in 2022. The defense appealed, arguing that testing DNA from discarded trash without a search warrant violates the Fourth Amendment. The appellate court firmly rejected that claim, ruling that once you throw an item into the trash, you abandon any reasonable expectation of privacy. Privacy advocacy groups are naturally wringing their hands, claiming this decision opens the door to unchecked surveillance by the state. But common sense settled this question decades ago. If you toss something into a public dumpster, it is garbage, not a locked safe in your private bedroom. Detectives used good old-fashioned police work and modern forensic science to take a cold-blooded killer off the streets and bring justice to a grieving family after nearly 40 years. The Constitution was written to protect the rights of law-abiding citizens in their homes, not to grant constitutional immunity to murder evidence resting at the bottom of a public garbage can. A bipartisan group of lawmakers in both the House and the Senate is demanding that the Trump administration give a clear timeline on the federal reclassification of cannabis under the Controlled Substances Act. Lawmakers sent formal inquiries to the Department of Justice and the Drug Enforcement Administration, demanding answers before the upcoming fiscal deadline. Proponents argue that the current federal confusion creates a mess for state legal businesses, blocking them from basic banking services, creating tax headaches, and restricting medical research. Meanwhile, several conservative lawmakers are pushing back hard, urging the White House to halt the reclassification entirely and keep strict Schedule I restrictions in place. This is a classic clash between state realities and federal bureaucracy. Right now, dozens of states have legalized cannabis in some form, creating multi-billion-dollar markets. But federal law still treats the entire industry like a black market criminal enterprise. That contradiction forces legal businesses to store piles of cash in physical vaults, making them magnets for armed robbery. Whether someone supports legalization or opposes it, forcing law-abiding state businesses to operate entirely in cash is a disaster waiting to happen. The federal government needs to stop hiding behind bureaucratic delays, make a definitive call, and let businesses operate under clear rules. That is the news for this hour. Stay grounded, keep your eyes open, and do not let the talking heads sell you nonsense. I am Tom Sense, and this is The Tom Sense Show. We will see you next time.